Hey guys, I just thought I'd talk to you tonight, it's actually pretty late now, about something I was thinking about, which is the American police system at the moment. I'm Australian, obviously, but I am a bit worried that our police are going that way. So basically all you have to do is turn on YouTube and you see endless American cops beating the shit out of their citizens. Okay, just random things like kids being bashed, and then things like black people being bashed, and then white women being bashed, and then every other type of person being bashed. So that's the American police force. That's what's going on at the moment with those guys. It's pretty full on, and I really think that there's a reason for this that most people haven't thought of, and that's what I wanted to address in this video. I don't usually sort of say my deeper ideas or just concepts on how to fix problems, but I thought I'd say one of these things just politically, because really, I just want to get some idea out there. Maybe someone else who is a better communicator can carry it on and maybe make a bit of a difference. So the solution's pretty simple, but first you've got to understand the problem. So what's happening with the American police right now, at least from my point of view, is obviously the people there, the actual citizens, are not happy with the conduct, but they have no power basically to change the police force. Not that they know of anyway. I mean, they have power if they group together, but there's no power or immediate mechanism to communicate their dislike of what the police are doing, or if the police are actually serving the community or not. So the way I figured to fix the problem is pretty straightforward, and it's been around for a long time. It's the idea of the market mechanism. So essentially what you do is you put all the money and the tools, like America, like literally tanks now. They have armored personnel carriers and tanks and just bomb squad and robots and all sorts of things going on just for police forces. I heard one thing which was an armored personnel carrier for a place which had 1,100 people in America. I mean, imagine that. You've got 1,000 people. Most of us have been to a school that has had 1,000 people. Imagine that being policed with a armored personnel carrier. It's pretty intense. So why does this happen? Well, I mean, the police force want to be the strongest people on the block, otherwise they're worried they'll be attacked. So they want to have the most powerful sort of weapons and everything like that. But the reason why that doesn't really serve the community is pretty straightforward, because, see, an analogy you can draw is to socialism. One of the primary mechanisms of failure that keep coming up for socialism is that they're in the dark about the costs of something, the true cost of whatever they're doing, because there's no one actually buying the product. And what I mean by this is, say, in a socialist country, because all the means of production are owned by the government, essentially, there's no one person who owns the means of production, they're forced into a position where if they produce something, they can't account for all the variables. Like, say it might be cheaper if you're producing, say, milk, and you set up a farm somewhere and you're producing milk, and there may be a better technique to produce that milk, a cheaper technique. And so what happens is, in the free market, or at least a mildly capitalist market, it doesn't even have to be truly free, we may have a reserve bank system involved in it, but what happens, you've got a thing where the milk is bought, and if there's a competitor who can do it cheaper, like say they've got a better way to actually get the milk out of the cows, a cheaper way to do that, then that's invented, and if that works, then those people will be able to produce the milk cheaper, assuming they're right next to each other. But say one farm is closer to the place that actually sells the milk, well then maybe those people are going to be cheaper anyway, so then the means of production will move to them because they're going to be cheaper. And the bottom line is that the consumers will always buy the cheapest product, provided that the quality is the same and the marketing's about the same, right? So what this forces companies to do is to be competitive, and actually they know if what they're doing is working or not, if the quality is too low, or if the price is too high, if the money's worth is actually being exchanged, the value of the product is equivalent to the demand, right? But when you're in a socialist situation, that feedback mechanism is gone. So you've got the government who is controlling all the means of production, but no one's actually buying. It's just going straight to people, essentially not for free because everyone has a job, but there's no one who's spending their personal sort of assets on these sort of things, and thus it ends up in a situation where the feedback mechanism is lost. They're in the dark because they don't know if maybe it was better to go to the farm that was producing the milk that was closer, or if it was better for the farm that was producing the milk with a different means of production. They're not really sure because no one's really paying for the stuff, so they're in the dark. There's no feedback mechanism. Well, in the same way, I think that's what's happening with the police. So I think what's going on is the police force, they get a lot of good people through, and they've got some bad people in there as well. It's just like any community. It's a broad reach and broad range of people. But what's happening is, what's their feedback mechanism? What's their goals? How do they know if what they're doing is succeeding from the community standpoint? Well, they really don't, because they have to rely on the political system and the judicial system to give them the feedback on if they're doing their job properly, which isn't actually the community. And we all know this because, hey, even in a democracy like Australia, it takes 3 years, or whatever the political term is, the cycle at the moment, may change, may not have changed, or who knows, to actually get the feedback. And then it's like, oh, someone else comes in, or the only time that changes also is if the media get involved, which WikiLeaks showed the media has been keeping a lot of things that people should have known out of the public eye. So essentially, what actually fixes this problem is introducing the feedback directly to the public, right, where the public can basically curtail or choose not to fund a particular approach in either a police force in an area, or actually just the specific things. They can veto the specific policies that are being pushed upon the people, because maybe the people of that town think it is ridiculous of some law, and it could even be something that is considered major, but I think this would solve the issue. And what I'm actually saying, to be clear, so if you have a law, say cannabis, all right, so it's a touchy subject. Personally, don't smoke and have nothing to do with it. However, when I look at the studies, I can see a lot of biased studies, a lot of really dodgy sciences and stuff that's been paid for by different governments in order to maintain an authoritarian stance, rather than actually authentic science, which is double-blind studies and not really rigged. So cannabis, whether or not you're for or against it, here's the point. It's a personal choice, right? And does the government really have the right to curtail a personal choice? Hey, maybe in Australia, you're following a religious mandate. So, the government may have no right legally, not really sure, you have to speak to your lawyer, but maybe they have no right to actually tell you that you can't smoke cannabis. Who knows? But if you've got a community out there which happens to be fond of smoking cannabis and it happens to be illegal, I think it should be a community feedback. The people in that area can actually just say and veto, like say in Nimbin, they would be able to just veto the law being enforced. That's not making it legal, by the way. It's just vetoing, saying, hey, look, we in this area don't want our police force or any police in this area actually forcing that law on people. Even though it exists, we accept that it's a policy that's been put through. We just think that for us, that's not appropriate. And all the sort of side effects of that will affect only the people who live there. Okay, and I think that's fair enough. And this coupled with a couple other ideas, one being that, say you actually take the funding of the police force and also the assets, and you put it in a common trust, okay, and you split those, and that large common trust you split up into the different areas, like the different police stations, right? And if the people of a town aren't happy, there are, say, monthly or even fortnightly votes from the community. It's optional, like you don't have to do it, but you can go on a forum or whatever the particular measurement device may be, and I mean we can measure atomic particles now. We can surely measure the number of votes in a community. Okay, so it's like even on a bi-weekly basis, it's very easy to do this stuff. We have the internet now as well. That may help. But here's the point. So you have this mechanism, and you actually just ask the people, well, if the people are not happy with what has been done by the police force, then they can actually take the assets away from the police of use. They don't actually take it off the ownership, but they do take the ability to use the assets off the police. So say they have a tank in a 1,100 people town, then yes, the asset can be off limits to the police, and they no longer do that. And also these people have, like I said before, the ability to veto the law itself that says, hey, for example, no cannabis, or any other law that is ridiculous. I think the side effect of this would actually be that the police force could get on with their job of actually protecting the people with the things that really matter, and not having to enforce stupid laws in communities that don't want them, that don't serve the best interests of all the people there who aren't interested in it. Just